Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long was 1975. A YouTuber's on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But Long was 1975.
Hey YouTube, Longboys Post 1975 and welcome to a random vlog. I don't know what I'm going to call this. I'll worry about that when I process it. It's going to be something either along the lines of, well, you already know what it's called because it's up there, which is Who Remembers the In-Shops, which was the inspiration for this video when I was on lunch a couple of days ago, and where I bought my Japanese import Megadrive games from in the high street as a kid, because this kind of ties into, you know, the video I did a couple of weeks ago, the vlog I did a couple of weeks ago about who remembers the dreaded please allow 28 days for delivery, which, you know, as a kid was just an unbearable penance. And obviously, as you know, I imported a Japanese Megadrive. It is the birth of this channel, repiecing together my childhood collection of games that were, for the majority, literally most of them were Japanese. And obviously that meant that buying games, you know, creating my game library, I say completely at the mercy, but that makes it sound worse than it is. I'd be reliant, I should say, on the black and whites and the back of magazines such as CVG and Meme Machines. And when I say reliant, you know, that would be primarily, or initially I thought that would be where I was going to buy every single game, which means while I would not, you know, it would not be difficult for me to purchase games, you know, for my Mega Drive, even though at this point it was a year or so before it came out and English games started showing up, or PAL games I should say, started showing up in the high street. It would be whatever I bought, I would have to wait 28 days for it to show up, because it always took 28 days. I mean, once you built up a small amount of games, then that isn't necessarily a problem, because you played everything you had back then, you know, because a new game was expensive and didn't come along very often, although it did for me because I had so many jobs. But obviously I explained that in a video, my nostalgic memories of my Saturday jobs. But the point is, you still went through games then, unlike you would when you're an adult, when you have true disposable cash. We valued games back then a lot more than we do now, or maybe that's just me. You know, rage quit, walk away, trade it in before you even actually finish the game, stuff like that. You didn't do that shit when you were a kid. You got your pound of flesh out of it. You never traded it, swapped it with a mate, or sold it. Or in my case, I didn't sell any of my Mega Drive games. I traded one, Rambo 3, which will get a mention in this video because of where I bought it, which I forever regretted. But yeah, I didn't sell any of my Mega Drive games. Obviously, at some point I sold the entire lot. I am aware of that, you know. But the point is, yeah, you valued them. So, but anyone else, because I only knew one other person, and he got a Japanese Mega Drive a lot closer to when it was released in the UK. So he didn't get the same level of bragging rights as I did at school, because I was a fucking god. I was the only person who had a Mega Drive, you know, initially for, you know, probably 6-8 months in my secondary school. I was fucking royalty. Good times. And for a Super Famicom as well, later on, to a lesser degree. But so anything I bought, I mean, it would all be decided to me as well by, you know, how well they were reviewed in Meme Machines, and I mean when it was in the middle of CVD and stuff like that. So I was reliant on Meme Machines to tell me what was a good game, because import games were 24, 29 and 34 quid. And then I would get out the back of the magazines, wait 28 days. Now, who remembers the In-Shops? Because when I was a kid, we found out that this place called the In-Shops had a little stool I would say, inside of it that sold Japanese Mega Drive games. And there was also an In-Shops that was downtown Bedminster, the building that is Wilco's now. That used to be the In-Shops. So the one that you used to be able to park on top, but you can't now because it's so dangerous and might collapse, even though you're still allowed to go in the building and it's allowed to be operated as a shop. I don't know, I have fond memories as a kid driving, my mum driving up that big roundabout ramp like that up to the top, parking on the roof free for an hour, and then, you know, going into the in-shops. But there was also one in Weston-super-Mare, and in Weston-super-Mare it would be, this means nothing to anyone unless you're from my neck of the woods, I want to say where McDonald's is now, or maybe Proper Job. It was definitely in that ballpark of an area, and it was far bigger than the one in Bedminster. But basically, I was just like Googling random crap when I was at lunch, and I eating my lunch, killing time with the internet, as you do. And there was this website that said old shops that don't exist anymore. And I went there, and this was in Newport, and I was scrolling through all these pictures. There's loads and loads of pictures of stuff like Woolworths and stuff like that. And there was an in-shops there in Newport, in Wales. And then I was scrolling through some more other websites and found that there was one somewhere in the Midlands and things like that. And I thought they were like a West Country chain, kind of like Pink Planet is, which, you know, rest in peace, sadly, Pink Planet, which is there were Pink Planets further afar, but the majority of Pink Planets were primarily in the West Country. So I thought it was like that. I mean, based on me being a kid, because obviously we had one in Bristol, there was one in Weston-super-Mare, and we discovered the in-shops after I had my Megadrive. So this was brilliant. This was like a complete bonus, because I did not know that there was this kind of little store, because the in-shops, as far as I can understand, was to help people with, you know, small trading businesses that couldn't afford the rent of a shop or something like that. So it was like an indoor market, but it was all new stuff, and so it would all be under one roof, hence the name in-shops, which was completely wasted on me as a kid. And you go in and there'd be like loads of clothes stores, shoe stores, there'd be like, you know, like Timpson's, people who cut keys and stuff like that. There'd be hardware, and I'd say stores, but they'd be not so much booths, like little areas cordoned off from everyone else. And I'd say there'd be about 20 to 30. And I remember it because you could go in the front of the store and you could come out the back, and then you'd walk up the ramp onto the roof where your car was parked, where you can't park anymore because it's dangerous, but you can still go inside for some reason. Can't be that fucking bad, can it? So I have fond memories of that, going in one entrance, coming out the back, because this game store was towards the back, but it was cheap. So it's like an indoor market now, but it was primarily you know, new stuff. There might be one or two second-hand stuff things in there, but I didn't really care, because I only ever went in there for this place once I found out it sold Japanese, going to say second-hand, no it didn't, sold Japanese Megadrive games. And we discovered it completely by accident, because I got my Megadrive in very early 1989, didn't come out in this country till 1990, and there was something happening at school. I can't remember what it was, but we needed like new clothes, new equipment and stuff like that. And so my mum said, oh, so and so, my friend says that there's this place called the In-Shops, and there's a whole bunch of small stores inside, but they got like school clothes and stuff like that, and equipment like, you know, calculators and shit like this, and it's all far cheaper than Argos and in the high street and stuff like that. So we're going to go and have a look in there. So I was walking around with my mum, like, you know, bored, with my twin brother as well, like bored as you usually are. And I said, Mum, can I go and have a look? And I walked around, and then I just came running back to my brother Ian and just went, there's a fucking video game store in here. There's a video game store in there. Come with me. And Mum was like, wait, where you going? Where you going? Can't stop now, Mum. Video games. And we found it, and it was like, again, it was a really small area, and it would have been literally like two sides, a back, there was a desk here, his till was here, there was a TV behind him with a Megadrive plugged into it. So Megadrives were not out at this point, right? And it was more so primarily concentrating on consoles, because obviously the NES, I'm not going to say NES because I'm English, the NES and the Master System were out at this point. He also had Atari ST and Amiga games. I can't recall if he had any ZX Spectrum games or anything like that. I think he was kind of going for like the better looking graphically systems and stuff like that. And he had a massive Master System section. He had a decent NES section. He had Amiga. I can remember that. I can remember Atari ST. But he had a huge. It's like he was ahead of his time. It's like he knew this. He must have read Mean Machines or CVG or something like that, and just thought, holy shit, if I can get my hand on these games. Because if you look at, like, people were importing these consoles. I may have been the only person who had one at school, but people were importing these consoles. You only had to go through the black and whites at the back of Mean Machines and CVT and other magazines like that, you know, like Edge and shit, to see that there are tons of different companies were importing Mega Drives. PAL or SCART, because that's what we called it back then. If you had a brain, you got a SCART. If you got a PAL, you got some butchered fucking dodgy PAL conversion. But yeah, so obviously knew that there would be a market for these games. I'm going to have a Mega Drive section. So literally, this was in, like, so it went like that, his bit was there, but then there was like a wooden shelf here, with games on the front, games on the back. So looking straight at it, you wouldn't know he had any Mega Drive games, and you wouldn't necessarily be able to see the TV until you're in it and you look that way. Again, I am aware this means absolutely bugger all to everyone, but I can see it. Oh lordy, can I see it up here? And no idea what it was called, this store. No idea what any of these stalls, I should say, were in, you know, this, in the in-shops were cool. But obviously they had names for trading and tax purposes. And I can't remember if there were cards or anything inside the cases. But yeah, so imagine my surprise, you know, proud owner of a Japanese Megadrive, all few games I've got at this point, like maybe 2, maybe 3. Rastan Saga 2 that came with it, didn't get Batman. I know I say that all the time, but it still pisses me off. I paid £189 for the Batman pack and you never gave me Batman, and then you promised that you sent it to me and you never did. Bastards. And I can't remember what other ones I had then. I've got a list in my Japanese Megadrive playlist. I've got 3 videos on every single Japanese Megadrive game I had that reflects what I had then. But yeah, so imagine me when I walked around the other side and just looked at this and like yanked on my brother's arm and just went, Japanese Mega Drive games. And he had a decent section. He probably had 30, pushing maybe 30, maybe more 20, because obviously early 1989, maybe spring 1989, there would have probably only been around about 20, maybe 25, maybe 30 games. I don't know. See, the times, you know, timestamp on this all blur into fucking nostalgia vision and shit like that. But I do know that this was a game changer, because as I said at the start of this video, I could still import them, so I wasn't sure of software. There nothing beats, I say nothing beats, as a, you know, a kid and as an adult being able to walk into a store and buy a game, says the person who owns a Series S. But as a kid, it was like, this was like, wait, you mean there's a store that I can go into and buy game? And I remember that it was hit or miss. Sometimes he had really big, you know, like later stuff and stuff that you wanted games, and sometimes he had lesser titles that you never even heard of. We'll get to 2 of those, but they turned out to be absolute bangers. And so you would still have to import, you know, from the black and white to the back of the magazine. So I did. I would say it was about 70% black and white, 30% the in-shops and this gaming store. And that also includes the in-shops at Weston. But we'll get to that as well. So this was fucking brilliant, because it meant, you know, in the school holidays, on Saturdays, if my mum went there, if I could beg her to take us there, and obviously with the money I had from my part-time jobs, there was somewhere in Bristol that was literally on our doorstep where I could go. Again, at the mercy of what the person decided to stock and what he could get, because if stuff was really big and popular, and I don't know where he got it, because it wouldn't have been wholesale, but his prices were pretty good. Well, in fact, they were very good. They were in line with what stuff was when it came out in the UK. And the thing is, I stopped visiting him, which is sad really, and selfish on my part. It's like he served a purpose, and I discarded them when the machine came out in the UK, because obviously all initial UK releases were dual ROM, weren't they? So they had the Japanese and... Oh yeah, I'm in the ticking clock room. If you don't like clocks, meh, live with it. I like them. So yeah, so you know, earlier games, well, a couple of years I believe, were dual ROMs, Japanese and, you know, PAL release. So I just bought them, because that little cartridge lock thing, people cut it off. People like cut the top of the thing out. I didn't. You just pushed it in and you just pushed the on button, and like the arm, you know, just like went back a little bit. And so yeah, I always remember like when people say like, I've taken a Dremel to my, did Dremels exist then, to my Mega Drive, so now I can play, you know, UK cartridges. You didn't need to, you just stuck it and pushed it on anyway and it worked. There was enough give in the arm for it to work, but the point is, I deserted him. Oh, but for that year or so before, you know, UK games came out, I bought a lot of games in it, and they were very reasonably priced. There was a bunch of games that were £19, which was a godsend, because even with my part-time jobs, you know, sometimes it would be like, I couldn't afford, you know, like, I would say all new releases were $34.99, which generally was what they were, you know, the official PAL ones. But sometimes I just couldn't afford that. And so that's how I came across gems such as, yeah, I made notes. I'm not going to cover all the games here. Assault Suit Lenos. First of all, the box art is absolutely fantastic. And it's, the Japanese box art is phenomenal. But it was 20 quid. Amazing box art, 20 quid. Bought that, went home, loved it, balls hard, could never get past level 4, fantastic music, all in Japanese, not really sure 100% what's going on, but what a great little run and gun game. And you kind of knew even as a kid that it was 19 quid because it probably had what we like to consider budget graphics, but the music more than made up for that. And I remember I was so in love that I used to take it at my mate Sam's house when I took my Mega Drive over there, and I'd stay over like on a Saturday or something. And he fucking loved this game so much that he'd take the music, he'd take the music of the game off. It is that good. And kept an audio tape of it and would play it. But yeah, he loved this game as well. And we worked out what to do basically by just trial and error and playing together. But that was a 20 quid game I got in this, whatever this store was called, in the in-shops. And another one I got was Herzog Zwei. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, which is like, is it like literally the first real-time strategy game? Had to work out completely what to do in that with my brothers because the manual was entirely in Japanese. That was 19 quid. Box art is shit, to be fair, the Japanese one on that. But that was a mind-blowing game for 20 quid because first, you know, initial thoughts, you're like, it's not a shoot 'em up, what am I doing, this is shit. But then it's obviously take over your opponent's base and simultaneous two-player and stuff like that and transforming robots into jet and shit like that. That was a fucking amazing game. Honestly, I cannot recommend you play that game highly enough. I think loads of people do videos on it now as like underrated hidden classic gems in the Mega Drive library. I don't even know if it got a Western release, but yeah, got both of those from there. Very early game I got from there. So these were like really small cartridges as well that got really great reviews. It's not aged so well on the Mega Drive, and I don't mean by today's standards. It didn't age so well over the few years it was out compared to later on shoot 'em ups, but the initial, you know, reviews of it in magazines were through the fucking roof, and I paid $34.99 for that, and that was Forgotten Worlds. And me and my brothers loved that. I remember we played it. We took it to Westwood O one day, and we're playing it, you know, on the portable TV in the bedroom that had 2 bunk beds and an extra bed, you know, because it's a holiday chalet. And yeah, we were playing it when it rained outside, and we loved it, and we completed it. But at the same time, they had it down in the arcades. It wasn't that one I always talk about in Westwood O, it was another one, and that's when I kind of noticed that, you know, for all the magazine go, you'll be hard pushed to tell this from, you know, tell the difference from this in the arcade. That was one of the first times when it was like a wake up. Yeah, there's a considerable difference, you know. There's one thing to be said for looking at this in magazines and the magazines ranting and raving about it when they clearly haven't played the arcade machine. Then for you to play it and then come across it in your travels in the arcade and realise that, you know, sacrifices had been made. But spiritually it was very good and it played alright. It just didn't age very well. But paid $34.99 for that. Another really early game that I definitely remember getting in here, and it was a winter's evening because I can still remember like wanting it because the magazine's given it a really good review, and yeah, just going in here when obviously it got dark at 4, so we went in there before 5 when it closed, and just not even knowing if they had it. We didn't phone fucking shops up then. They had a phone, obviously. Why would you do that? I'm 12 years old. You just went in there and just literally walked in and just went, please. And that was eSWAT. Paid $34.99 for that. The Japanese box art on that. I'm pretty sure, I want to say Glenn Fabry, but I don't think it's him, but I'm pretty sure it's a 2000 AD artist of that time. But yeah, that was an absolute banger that I got in that store as well. And another one I definitely got in that store that was $34.99. Very early on game. And yeah, utterly fantastic. And the thing is, he started recognising me, he started talking to me, you know, and I would talk to him and anything you recommend, and he would let me pop games on this tiny little 14-inch colour TV that he had behind him, which was literally just run loads of stuff on it. Just because if you're a kid and it didn't matter what system you had, if you saw a fucking system running in a little, you know, booth like this and shit like this, selling games, you go in there just to watch that. You know, it was like moths to a flame, just drew children in and probably absorbed money out of their pockets. But yeah, he'd let me put stuff on like that. He never let me play it, the bastard. I remember that, but yeah, because obviously it was a Japanese Megadrive he had. And yeah, Strider, but that was a bragging right game right then, especially when you saw the shite that came out on the 16 bits. I know that was a big argument point for me, you know, lauding my Mega Drive. I know I've mentioned this so many times over kids at school, but yeah, eSWAT, Forgotten Worlds, Strider, Darius was another one I got in there. Knew nothing about this in the magazines, had not seen a review, took a chance on it. I think that was $24.99. So these were very reasonably priced. They never went above the price of what they were in the UK. So like I said, this was fucking brilliant for me. I was in heaven having it was like my own personal shop because I didn't know anyone else who had a Japanese Mega Drive. You know, it was like an exclusive club. You may not enter. I may, for I have a Japanese Mega Drive. Yeah, it was fucking fantastic. And then we went. My mum used to take us as a treat because for some reason I should check the calendar now. My birthday is October the 22nd. Oddly enough, so is my twin brother's. Huh? Who knew? So because it was almost half term, she used to take us to Western Supermare as a treat. We get fish and chips, and before I even had my Japanese Megadrive, we go to Dolphin Square, and there was a hardware store. Who remembers this? Well, none of you who live in Western Supermare and watch this vlog. There was a hardware store. I'm pretty sure, well, after a few years ago, it was either opposite Dolphin Square. In fact, I don't even know Dolphin Square's a thing anymore. It's probably been knocked down and turned into something no one wanted. I think it was over the road because we had fish and chips in a place near it, in one of the back streets before you got to the seafront. Means nothing to you. And we fish and chips as a treat for our birthday, and then we get all our birthday money and we go into this store, and upstairs they had Sega Master System games. So that was a big deal for me. And I brought Double Dragon in there. So obviously we went to Western, and then one day we went to Western, and I don't know how we ended up, because if where it would be now by the McDonald's, you know, the in shops back then, I would pass that now, walking to downtown or walking to the seafront in Western, the arcades and the pier and stuff like that, and the decent shops. Because I park in Tesco's. You pay £3 in Tesco's, they give you a ticket, and then you can park for 3 hours, and then you key your car number into a fucking machine. It's brilliant. I thoroughly recommend it. They knew that people were going to go there just to park, even if they didn't shop. So give them a minimum amount to buy, and why not make some money out car parking? I like shit like that. Instead of just busting people's asses and giving them a ticket for daring to park in your fucking supermarket. But yeah, so I would pass this now, but I don't know why we would pass that then, because we would have parked in like an NCP or something like that. I don't even know if Tesco's was there then, but we walked by these in shops, and so my mum got to go in there, because my brain was thinking there must be, because I didn't understand. I mean, I didn't even know it was a fucking chain back then. I just thought it was like, you know, must be a Bristol Western thing, because we're cities that are next door to each other. But there must be a video game booth in here, because there is one in Bristol. I don't know. I don't know if it was sheer fluke, because it was similar sort of stuff that this person had. You know, like mainly Amiga, Atari ST, Mega Drive, Import Mega Drive, Master System, NES. You know, it wasn't really like a micro, you know, computer store or anything like that. And yeah, and it was the same sort of thing. You know, wooden shelves, didn't have a TV. Walked in, one whole display of import Japanese Mega Drive games. So I don't know if the bloke who owned it owned both and got what is made to run another one or something like that. So it was literally the world's smallest franchise, but it also meant that I could go somewhere else, and there were Japanese Mega Drive games in the high street to circumvent the god awful waiting 28 days for delivery shit. And I remember what I got in this one, because this is where I bought Rambo 3, told you we'd get to that. And I remember it got alright reviews. Well, I got good reviews, again, really small cartridge. But I just wanted it because it was fucking Rambo 3. And the box art alone, because it's Stallone on it and shit like that, like the movie poster. Bought it. Loved that game. Loved it. Why did Ickle Me trade it? Because Ickle Me was fucking retarded, that's why. Yeah, and that was in it. And I think that was $24.99. That was not expensive. Well, it was $24.99 adjusted for inflation now. But... and you could argue it was expensive. Games really shouldn't have been that price back then, should they? But this was imported, so it had more chance, you know, or justification for charging more for it than, you know, other games back then, because he's imported them. Or did he just buy them and he call the black and whites and say, if I buy 10 of this, what will you do me? Don't know, because again, none of the prices in this one, so maybe it was a chain or a franchise, went above $34.99. But again, I just felt so happy knowing that there were two places, one literally on my doorstep and one ever so slightly further away, but kind of still on my doorstep, for me to buy games, you know, in the wild and not be completely, you know, tied to the magazines, which wasn't really an issue, as I said. But again, being able to buy games, especially as a kid, having a pocket full of Christmas money, birthday money, it's exciting. It's an experience. It was when you were a kid, a truly exciting day out, just to go there and not know what they would have. And yeah, I bought Rambo 3. And there were two other games that I got there for 2 Christmases. So I must have then gone at least to this one for, or supported this one for a year or so after the Mega Drive came out in this country, because I remember these 2 games, I saw them there and said to my mum, can I have that for Christmas? Can I have that for Christmas? Are you sure? Because that's pretty much most of your Christmas money there, $34.99. Remember, I'm a twin and we had an older brother. Christmas was fucking expensive for my parents. Plus, they didn't believe in spoiling the shit out of us, and I thank them very much for that, because I see some of the kids, for the colleagues I work with, and think, Jesus Christ, that kid is fucked when he gets to secondary school. But anyway, sorry, I digress. But so I got DJ Boy because it got amazing reviews in. Actually, that was in the pages of Mean Machines and CVG, and they said it's arcade perfect. Again, I saw that in Westwood O in another arcade, not the Amazing Arcade. I can't be that amazing. These are two machines I talk about now that weren't in there. And yeah, DJ Boy, it's a fun game. It's a really good game on the Mega Drive. Its balls are really hard and it's uncensored in Japan. But fuck me, it's nothing like the arcade graphically. It's definitely a cover band, if you know what I mean. But yeah, got that. And then that was put away. I think that went about October, November. But was put away for me to have, and play at Christmas. And then another year, one of the games was, again, the times all blur in. So got Mercs from there, put away for me to play at Christmas. And those two games, I didn't do that thing with my mum, which is, I should check it works, shouldn't I, in case something goes wrong, and ruin it for me. Like I did with my Master System I got for Christmas, of which I paid half for. See price statement about not being spoiled. But yeah, so I generally didn't know that the in-shops was clearly a nationwide thing. When I say nationwide, maybe there was one in Western, maybe there was one in Bristol, maybe there was one in Wales, and maybe there was one in the Midlands, and that was it. Although I've got a nagging feeling that someone told, when I name dropped it, by accident in a video years ago, that there was an in-shops by them. Whether or not these other in-shops had import games in, I do not know. It would have been literally whatever businesses were in the community at the time that, wanted a cheap place to set up business. I don't know how cheap, couldn't have been that cheap because you're in the high street, but I guess pooling together, cheaper rent than, renting the store yourself. But yeah, did not know that the in-shops was a thing. And also, what a fantastic experience, because I've always painted the picture that pretty much everything I got for my Japanese Megadrive came from the black and whites, and then literally one or two, because I bought more games than this, by the way. I just can't remember what they are. Can't be bothered to go upstairs and look at my Megadrive shelf and go, oh yeah, I got that one from there as well, got that one from Western, etc, etc, etc. But yeah, I painted a picture that the majority of stuff I got came from, the black and whites, and I would probably say a good 70% of it did, but seeing as I had like 60 odd games and shit like that, I got a fair chunk from these places, and they were very, very good prices. So basically, as always, I'd love to know what you think, especially did you have an in-shops in your neck of the wood way back in the day? We're talking late 80s, very early 90s. Did it have a game store in it? Like, I guess you could argue video games, since they were really popular back then, there was a decent chance it would. Whether or not it had import games or console games, I don't know. But did it have, an import store in there? Or when you were a kid, or when you had an import console back in the day as a kid, I'll get there in a minute, I'm garbling, I'm aware of that. Were you lucky enough to have a shop downtown that sold imported games for your system, or for your imported system? Because obviously the PC Engines did make it to some of these stores back in the day. Anyway, as always, I'd love to know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later.